The fallout over Donald Trump's move to recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel continues as more protests erupt in the West Bank today. Well, this morning, Israel's military carried out fresh airstrikes on Gaza, killing at least 2 and injuring more than a dozen people. It said it was targeting Hamas militants in relation to rocket attacks over its border. Well, I'm joined now by Lyndon, who is the Executive Director of OneVoice Europe, an organisation which works with Israel and Palestine to try to achieve a two-state solution. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
We are hearing of more skirmishes on the ground. Do you fear that tensions will continue to rise in the region?
I hope they won't, and we're urging everybody to try and de-escalate things, but unfortunately there's a dynamic at work now that seems as if it hasn't run its course. We've got some pretty big diplomatic and political events coming in the next few days. There's going to be an Arab League meeting, potentially an unprecedented PLO meeting which may include Hamas members, and of course the Israeli government and cabinet reconvene tomorrow as well. So quite often with President Trump and with disruptive and quite unhelpful events like this, it's easy to know how they start, but it's very difficult to determine how it's going to conclude.
Indeed. We also know that Arab leaders are meeting in Cairo today. Realistically, what do you think they can do or achieve with this?
It's difficult because quite a few of the Arab leaders you mentioned have different interests, different positions. There's been speculation that Saudi Arabia has been in consultations with the Trump administration about various elements of a peace plan. The Jordanians in particular are in a very compromised position. They're the custodians of the holy place in East Jerusalem and have a very large Palestinian population themselves. So it will be a very difficult meeting. I expect that there will be further meetings taking place throughout the week, more diplomacy. What's unfortunate is that the Trump administration's most senior aide working directly with these Arab states, Dina Powell, has resigned as a result, it seems, of this Jerusalem statement. So things are in a slight state of disarray.
Were you surprised when you heard the statement?
Yes, I mean, it was obviously broadcast that it was going to take place, but nonetheless, I mean, to see a US president make a statement such as that was a surprise. It's historic. It overturns, 70 years of US diplomatic positions on this. And I think most importantly, it risks putting the conflict into a zero-sum paradigm, and it's really important for us internationally to pay attention to this. Both Israelis and Palestinians have legitimate and long-held aspirations and, as I said, a legitimate claim to have capitals in Jerusalem. And if an international mediator seems to put the thumb on the scale for one party over the other, you risk then driving both parties to seeing this in zero-sum terms, and there cannot be peace between Israelis and Palestinians unless they both have a presence in this city that's so important to them. And I wish that was made clearer by the Trump administration, and it's not too late. Perhaps there are ways in which international actors, not just the US, can make it clear and restate the need for Israelis and Palestinians both to have a capital in this city.
But playing devil's advocate here, I mean, the latest rounds of talks between Israel and Palestinians broke down back in 2014. That's a long time ago now. Could this reinvigorate attention, world attention on this region, and get things moving again?
Potentially. I mean, I suspect that is the rationale, if one exists, of the Trump administration. He's a very disruptive leader. He said very clearly in his speech that he wants to do something different to disrupt a process which, as you say, hasn't been functioning correctly. But of course, people's lives are at stake here, and that's where we need to be careful not to have a kind of a callous, things need to get worse before they get better approach. And we need to make sure that the stakeholders themselves, Israelis and Palestinians, are involved in this process. And the Palestinians seem to be withdrawing and walking away as a result, and it's difficult to anticipate meaningful peace talks happening while that's the case. The one thing I would hope for is that maybe it allows new voices to come to the fore. I mean, in Palestinian society in particular, you've got an incredibly young population, the youngest in the region, and they're not really represented, and maybe this is an opportunity for them to be able to achieve more political influence. And on the Israeli side, maybe it will focus minds a little bit more on the conflict. It isn't a burning issue in the Israeli electorate or in civil society to the degree that we might expect internationally. And the focus, as you say, of the international community being on this small piece of land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean again may make Israelis wake up and realise that they need to make meaningful moves here.
OK, we appreciate your thoughts this Saturday lunchtime. Thank you very much for joining us, Lyndon there, Executive Director of OneVoice Europe.